Okay, so maybe you've been dreaming of a career at sea, but we're not talking about just working on a ship. You're thinking bigger, bolder. You want to be the one guiding those massive vessels.
Maritime Pilot. Now, there's a title that carries some weight. And I can tell by this stack of research you've done, especially that deep dive on RoleCatcher, that you're not just testing the waters here.
Definitely not just dipping a toe in.
Smart move, because this is not your average turn the wheel and ring the bell kind of job.
Right, you're dealing with some serious tonnage here.
It's like imagine for a second trying to parallel park, but instead of a car, it's a skyscraper on water.
Ooh, I need to hit the gas on that one.
And then toss in some crazy currents, maybe a gust of wind here and there, and oh yeah, any little mistake could cost millions. That's the kind of high-stakes world a maritime pilot operates in.
I was going to make a joke about parking attendants on steroids, but you're right, this is way more intense than that. Just reading through this, especially what RoleCatcher says, the level of knowledge involved is incredible.
You're not kidding. It's not enough to know the ship inside and out. You need to know the sea like it's your own backyard. Every twist and turn of those local waterways, the way the tides can shift on a dime, how the vessel's going to react when the seas get rough. They're thinking 10 steps ahead in a way most of us wouldn't even imagine. We're talking constant mental calculations, wind speed, depth soundings. Heck, even the weight of the cargo factors into how that ship moves. One miscalculation and, well, let's just say grounding takes on a whole new meaning.
Okay, I'm starting to sweat just thinking about it, but that level of expertise, that kind of responsibility, it's got to have some perks, right? RoleCatcher mentioned high pay, and I mean high.
Let's just say it's not the kind of job where you're checking your bank account every 5 minutes wondering if the deposit went through.
Yeah.
But that reflects the weight of what's on your shoulders. You're talking about potentially millions, sometimes billions of dollars worth of cargo, not to mention the safety of everyone on board and the environmental impact if something goes wrong. It's a lot to parry.
Understatement of the year. High stress definitely comes with the territory then. What about this irregular hours thing I keep seeing pop up? What does that actually look like in this line of work?
Think less 9 to 5 and more always on call.
Oh boy.
A ship doesn't exactly wait for a convenient time to dock, right? So you need to be ready to move, day or night, weekend, holiday, you name it. It can be tough, especially on family life.
Definitely not for the faint of heart or someone who thrives on routine. So high pay, high stakes, and a schedule that's anything but predictable. What else does RoleCatcher say about the day-to-day reality of this job?
Well, one thing's for sure. It's not for the faint of heart or those who are prone to seasickness.
Huh. Good point.
You're out there in all kinds of weather, scorching sun, driving rain. I've even heard stories about the occasional rogue wave. And you're often working in tight spaces, lots of noise, the constant thrum of those engines. It's intense.
Not your typical office job with a water cooler and casual Fridays, that's for sure. But even with those conditions, there must be something amazing about guiding those ships, right?
100%. There's a certain thrill, a sense of accomplishment that comes with successfully navigating a massive vessel through challenging waters. It's tangible, the work you do, and let's not forget about those views. Sunrises over the open ocean, harbor lights twinkling at night. You won't find that kind of scenery in your average office park.
Now, that does sound pretty incredible. So we've talked about the demands, the rewards, the unique work environment. But how does someone even start down the path of becoming a maritime pilot?
Well, you might be surprised to hear this, but a traditional 4-year degree isn't always the first step. Now, don't get me wrong, a background in something like marine transportation, nautical science, maybe even oceanography can be helpful. But it really boils down to racking up those sea miles, experience over theory in this field.
Interesting. So it's less about what you know from a textbook and more about what you know from actually being out on the water.
You got it. RoleCatcher really emphasizes that practical experience. Before you even think about guiding a tanker, you need to understand how a ship operates from the keel up.
Makes sense. You wouldn't want a surgeon operating on you if they'd only read about it in books, right?
Exactly. And just like a surgeon trains under seasoned professionals, aspiring maritime pilots go through rigorous apprenticeships. They're working side by side with experienced pilots, learning the ropes, mastering the waterways, proving they can handle whatever gets thrown their way. It's the ultimate learn-by-doing career path.
So you're talking years of hands-on training, even before you're really in the captain's chair, so to speak.
Absolutely. And speaking of qualifications, I'm sure you're thinking about certifications. It's not as simple as getting a maritime pilot bumper sticker and calling it a day.
Huh. Right. I figured there had to be some pretty intense hoops to jump through.
That's an understatement. You're talking about vessels worth millions, sometimes billions of dollars. Safety is the name of the game here, so those standards are incredibly high. Let's see, we've got your Maritime Pilot license, of course, but then there's also STCW certification. That's your international rule book for safety and competence.
Okay, starting to make my head spin with all the acronyms.
And we're not done yet. Radar Observer certification, Vessel Traffic Services certification, yeah, the list goes on and on.
Wow, it really sounds like the learning never stops in this field.
You hit the nail on the head. The maritime world is always evolving. New tech, updated regulations, environmental changes. A good maritime pilot is a lifelong student, always learning and adapting their skills to meet those challenges head on.
So you've put in the years at sea, you've aced the exams, you've mastered the art of guiding these behemoths through the most challenging waters. What comes next in a maritime pilot's career? Is it just more of the same, or is there room to grow, take on new challenges? We'll dive into that right after the break. So you've conquered that rigorous training, you've got those hard-won certifications, you're officially a maritime pilot. What's next? Are you jumping straight into steering super tankers through busy shipping lanes?
Not so fast. Think about it like getting your driver's license. You wouldn't hop behind the wheel of a tractor trailer and hit the highway right away, would you? There's a progression, a chance to hone those skills before you're navigating the big leagues.
Makes sense. So walk me through the different stages of a maritime pilot's career. What does that path look like?
Well, RoleCatcher lays it out in 4 key stages. First up, you start as an entry-level maritime pilot, which is all about soaking up every bit of knowledge you can. Picture yourself shadowing those seasoned pilots, helping out with movers, really getting a feel for the rhythm of the harbor, learning the personality of all the different vessels.
You're not just learning the ropes, you're learning the water as well.
That's a great way to put it. It's like going from studying maps to actually understanding the heartbeat of a city. You're picking up on all the nuances, the hidden currents, the things you can't learn from a textbook.
It's the ultimate on-the-job training. So you've paid your dues as an entry-level pilot. What comes next? What's the next rung on the ladder?
That would be the junior maritime pilot. This is where the training wheels start to come off a bit, but you still got that safety net of a senior pilot right there with you. You're starting to actually guide ships yourself, making those real-time decisions.
But with a watchful eye nearby, just in case. I can only imagine what that first solo piloting experience must feel like. Exhilarating and maybe a little terrifying all at the same time, right?
I'd say that's a pretty accurate description.
Yeah.
All those hours of observation, all that theoretical knowledge, it all comes together in that moment. But it's still a learning curve, you know? You're refining how you communicate with the crew, becoming fluent in all the different navigational systems, developing that almost sixth sense for how a ship will behave.
Instinct honed by experience.
Absolutely. And speaking of mastering those skills, once you've proven yourself as a junior pilot, well, then it's on to the big leagues.
Time to earn those stripes. So that brings us to
Senior maritime pilot. This is where you really hit your stride. You're operating independently, confidently, guiding those vessels, no matter what Mother Nature throws at you. You become the go-to expert, the one they call on for your specific harbor or waterway.
So not just about piloting anymore, there's more leadership involved at this level. What else does RoleCatcher highlight about this stage?
You become the decision maker, the one ultimately responsible. Risk assessments, making sure everyone's following those safety protocols to a T, staying up to date on all those ever-changing maritime regulations. You're not just looking out for the ship, you're also mentoring the next generation of pilots.
Yeah.
Passing on that hard-won knowledge.
Sounds like an incredible amount of responsibility, but also incredibly rewarding. You're a leader, you're a mentor, you're a guardian of the harbor. But is that it? Is senior maritime pilot the top of the mountain, or is there another peak to climb?
Well, for those with a real passion for leadership, for shaping the future of the field, there's one final title to strive for: Chief Maritime Pilot.
Okay, now that has a nice ring to it. What does it take to reach those rarefied ranks?
Think of it as the admiral of the harbor. You've moved beyond navigating individual ships. Now you're overseeing the whole operation, managing teams of pilots, working hand in hand with the port authorities, setting those gold standards for everyone in the harbor.
So it becomes less about the individual vessels and more about the entire ecosystem of maritime traffic.
You got it. It's all about making sure everything runs smoothly, safely, and efficiently. And that requires a deep understanding of, well, everything, from logistics to regulations, human resources to cutting-edge tech. It's demanding, no doubt, but the impact you have is enormous. You're not just guiding ships, you're guiding the profession itself.
We've covered a lot of ground here. From those early days shadowing senior pilots to eventually becoming a mentor, a leader, even shaping the future of the profession, it's pretty clear that becoming a maritime pilot is no walk in the park. It takes years of dedication, intense training, a whole lot of courage.
And a love of the sea. Don't forget about that.
Right. But all those challenges, they lead to incredible rewards. Knowing you're playing a vital role in global trade, in transportation, even in protecting the environment. But now the question is, after learning all of this, is this the right career path for you? What kind of soul searching should someone be doing if they're seriously considering this line of work? It's decision time. We've talked about the skills, the training, the career path, but is this the right fit for you? I'm curious, what does RoleCatcher have to say about that?
Well, they have a whole section on interview prep, and it's full of thought-provoking questions. And these aren't just about if you can do the job. It really gets at whether you'd actually thrive in that kind of environment. It takes a certain kind of personality, you know?
Definitely not your average desk job.
Uh,
So hit me with it. What kind of soul searching are we talking about here?
it all starts with passion. I mean,
Okay.
do you feel that pull towards the sea? That almost instinctive fascination with ships and tides and the whole maritime world? It's one thing to enjoy a day out on a sailboat, but it's a whole other thing to feel truly drawn to it, you know?
It's more of a calling than just a job, right?
Exactly. And like any calling, this one comes with sacrifices. Think about it. Are you comfortable with that unpredictable schedule? The time away from home, maybe missing holidays or family events. It's a career that demands a certain level of flexibility, not just from you, but from your loved ones as well.
You're not just charting a course for ships, you're charting a course for your life. What other big questions does RoleCatcher bring up?
Well, how do you deal with pressure? Can you stay calm, cool, and collected, even when things get a little hairy? Because out on the open water, when you're responsible for a multi-million-dollar vessel and the lives on board, there's no room for second-guessing or panicking.
Talk about a high-pressure job interview. So tell me, how do you handle a crisis while steering 1,000 tons of cargo through a hurricane?
Right. You've got to be able to think on your feet, make those split-second decisions. And lastly, are you a lifelong learner? Because the maritime world is constantly changing and evolving, new technologies, new regulations, even the environment itself. A good maritime pilot never stops learning, never stops adapting to those changes.
It's not enough to just know your stuff, you got to be ready to learn new stuff. All the time.
100%. Intellectual curiosity is key. Being eager to embrace those new technologies, those advancements, that's what keeps you at the top of your game.
This has been an incredible journey exploring the world of maritime pilots. From those precise skills to that demanding work environment, it's clear these often unsung heroes play a vital role in our world, making sure goods and people move safely and efficiently across the oceans.
And we've learned it's a career path filled with challenges but also immense rewards. It demands not just expertise, but courage, adaptability, a deep understanding of that incredible force that is the sea.
And speaking of the future, one last thought for you. Remember how we talked about the maritime industry always evolving? Well, imagine AI starts playing a bigger role in navigation, autonomous ships becoming more common. Will the maritime pilots of tomorrow need to be as tech savvy as they are seaworthy? It's something to consider as you continue exploring this fascinating field. Until next time, thanks for joining us on this deep dive.